this programme will be largely about what the Europeans did when they got hold of gunpowder. Now, the plot thickens. Istanbul. Today it's the biggest city in Turkey and Europe. 15 million people live here.
It used to be called Constantinople. In the Dark Ages, when most Europeans were living in stick huts with their pigs, this was a rich and beautiful city. In fact, it was the trading capital of the world. So, everybody wanted it. Many nations had tried to attack it before. The Bulgarians, the Turks, the Crusaders even. And this was a Christian city. Nice. But by 1453, it was surrounded by the Ottoman Turks, led by their Sultan, the young Mehmed II. Before he could close in for the kill, he had a problem.
The problem is your walls. They are massive, and they encircle the city completely. Attila the Hun took one look at them and ran away. Tactical withdrawal, I think it's called. There are actually 3 separate lines of defence. This beautiful market garden was the moat, protected by a wall. Behind that was another wall, and behind that was the biggest of them all. The towers are up to 20 metres high, and the wall is 5 metres thick.
So if you made it through the first 2 lines of defence, you ended up here. Looking up at that. Before gunpowder, siege warfare relied on towers and ladders, literally scaling the walls. Hence more guns were used. And then, Mehmed II, when he besieged Constantinople, Mehmed the Conqueror, had a new idea. He cast enormous guns, 32 inches in diameter, throwing balls 1,400 pounds in weight, made of stone. They literally pulverised these walls, smashing into pieces, killing anybody around them. When the defenders first saw these guns and the effect they had, they were, as contemporary sources said, appalled.
For 49 days, Mehmed's cannons pounded the walls, consuming tens of tons of gunpowder. The onslaught was relentless. You can still see the damage today. On May the 29th, 1453, Mehmed's troops stormed into the city. Constantinople fell. Gunpowder revolution had truly arrived. It had destroyed the Byzantine civilization. I went down to Fort Nelson near Portsmouth because I thought you'd like to see how big Mehmed's cannons really were. This is the sister of those that demolished Constantinople. It was cast a few years later. It's 26 inches in diameter and fires a 600-pound ball. Mehmed's cannons are the biggest cannons ever made. You stay there, you civilization killer. The fall of Constantinople was little more than 200 years after the first picture of a cannon appeared in Europe. In England, as it happened, under the reign of Edward III. Europeans weren't stupid. They knew that old-fashioned siege weapons like trebuchets could be hugely destructive. But they too soon realised that you could do more damage using gunpowder to fire heavy stones and iron balls out of iron tubes at your enemies. Little special thing. There we go. Mehmet's cannons at Constantinople were just bigger than everyone else's. Where the Europeans really took off and became world beaters was in using gunpowder for personal weapons. And this added a whole new dimension to the gunpowder revolution.
Tea, Sir Colin?
Yes, please, Sir Mark.
Milk?
Yes, please.
Sweetener?
2, please. Thank you.
My pleasure.
The point about being a knight in armour, was not this. It was this. Your sword and your proficiency with it. Fighting with edged weapons was a knight's job. That was the source of his power and influence. He could decide, literally, life or death. Who he was going to kill, who's going to wound or maim, or who he was going to take for ransom to earn money. But with gunpowder weapons, you didn't have the choice. Any varlet, any coxcomb with a gun could fire indiscriminately at anybody. He may even kill a knight. He may even possibly kill me. Chivalry was doomed. Gunpowder was the beginning of the end for plucky English longbowmen too. The Battle of Agincourt, 1415. Unarmoured English archers, firing volley after volley of arrows, decimate those cocky French knights on their fancy dress horses. Everybody's seen the film. We all know English longbowmen were the best in the world. So, how do longbows stand up to the gunpowder muskets which replaced them? And how did that happen?
Roll up, ladies and gentlemen! Presenting a grand competition between Mark, the world champion drawer of a longbow, and Gary, the smoothbore black powder musket Deadeye. A trial of strength between training and guile and engineering and chemistry. Who will win, ladies and gentlemen? Roll up, roll up! Gentlemen, let the contest begin!
Gary's missed his target on the right, and Mark's already onto his third arrow. It's no contest. The longbow's better. Time for me to have a go.
Can I see if I can draw it back?
Yeah.
I bet I
Okay.
won't be able to. What does it? Well, how much does it take?
Well, this has a draw weight of 150 pounds at 32 inches, which is the full length of this arrow.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
stand there, okay,
Right.
present the bow, And now pull the string right back. You want to try a lighter one?
That was pathetic. But that's what they would have. That's the draw weight that they would have done.
Well, this is really the top end of the draw weight, but
Because you're the top end of the bloke area.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the average weight is believed to be around 120 pounds draw weight, but this is going towards the top end. But it was still, you would have still probably seen these sort of bows shot.
Those lads at Agincourt had to practice archery every Sunday to be that strong, by royal command.
So, how many arrows could they fire?
I could do probably 6 in a minute before I start getting worn out.
Also, if you're being attacked, adrenaline's going to have a slight...
Yeah, your adrenaline will, but also fear can make you fumble.
Yeah, true.
So you can, you'll slow down again. But the actual time it takes to sight the enemy, knock the arrow, draw it back, gauge where they are and shoot is about 7 seconds.
It is said that at Agincourt, the English fired 20 volleys a minute, but it takes Gary a day and a half to load and fire his musket.
Not so bad.
Well, Gary's finally hit the target.
Right, let's have a look.
Oh, yes. Very impressive. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus a balloon. No extra for the balloon.
It plugs the blood up.
And then 1 definite for the musket, but also that hole there, that would be a leg, so I'm giving that as well. However, in terms of shots on target, has to be the longbow at this distance.
Even so, the smoothbore musket was destined to become Prince of Weapons, along with its brother, the fearsome blunderbuss. I'm in Gary's gang now. Eager as I am to follow the latest trend and to be on the winning side, I decided to team up with Gary, who makes muskets in his shed.
This one's nipping up a bit, but they do move a little bit because of the nature of the leather. Be best pleased, would they?
No. Okay then. This is what did for the bow and arrow. The smoothbore musket, a completely different technology. 3 parts: stock, barrel, lock. The lock is there to apply fire to that, the touch hole. Inside the touch hole is a charge of this black powder. 8 grams. That 8 grams creates that much gas, and that blows a musket ball like that down the barrel so that when it leaves, it's travelling at supersonic speed. Very good, see? So now you don't need lots of men with overdeveloped right arms practising in the butts every evening and not being allowed to play football. Do they have any special...
Instead, any bloke off the street could be quickly trained to fire a musket and join the King's infantry. So I thought I'd volunteer.
Point your piece. Load. Charge with cartridge.
And then you bite the ball now, would you? Spit the ball now?
Spit the water now, and spit. Ram home.
Pointing the gun away from you, clearly.
Clearly. Return your scare and stick. Back up to port.
Oh, no, see, I'm doing it wrong-handed.
Right.
No, hang on a minute. Yeah, okay, sorry, mate.
Present.
Oh, sorry.
Give. Fire. Recover your piece. Right, now here we go, Mark. Point your piece. Load your piece. Charge with cartridge. Spit your ball. Draw your ramrod. Ram home your charge. Return your ramrod. Point your piece. Present. Give. Fire.
That showed him. What?
I think I've done really well. So Gary lets me do it with real gunpowder.
Charge the musket. Charge the musket with cartridge. Draw your scouting stick. Ram home your charge. Draw your scouting stick. Punch your musket. Present. Give. Fire. Recover. Put your bum down the wrong side. Recover. Give. Fire.
We hit the tree!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Highly accurate at 12 yards.
Not bad for a volunteer. So then Gary and I try blunderbusses.
Are we ready?
They take a double charge and are fired from the hip.
I think we got it.
Smoking out of that.
Blunderbusses are the best thing ever. Look at that.
With my newfound love of old guns, Gary's agreed to take me into a real battle. Well, sort of, with some very dedicated people.
Although gunpowder's been superseded, it hasn't gone away. Here's some in this cartridge. I'm here with Gary because some people like gunpowder and guns are pretending to die so much they have formed what are called reenactment societies. And they go out on summer's days like today and fight battles, which is what we're going to do.
The time, the 1640s. The English Civil War. A battle outside Berkeley Castle. Gary and I are with Prince Rupert's regiment. We're royalists. Against Cromwell's Parliamentary Army, played today by Tillier's regiment. Longbows have all but disappeared from battlefields. Pikes are still used for close quarter combat. But the weapon of choice, for those who can afford them, are now muskets. Gunpowder weapons fired in volleys are the rule today.
Front rank nil! Second rank close and stoop! Present! Check your scouring stick!
Hey!
Open your pans! Give fire!
Give fire!
Most soldiers have matchlocks, lit by slow-burning rope fuses and time-consuming to fire. Some have the new, faster flintlocks, lit by a spark. Two out of every 3 armed men in the English Civil War carry muskets. It's left to poor soldiers and country boys to fight with pikes once the main forces have closed on the enemy. And when the battle is over, surviving soldiers scavenge from the dead. Swords, cartridge cases, and most desirable of all, smoothbore muskets. See that? Powder flash. Badge of honour. One thing was really strange about reenactment is that quite quickly I wanted to die. And I kept saying, can I die? And then I died and I landed in a cowpat. There you go. Have a look at this. It's a replica culverin, a 16th century cannon that can fire a 24-pound ball over a mile and can smack through 12 inches of oak. It can do that because Europeans discovered a simple way to make gunpowder much more powerful. This is what early gunpowder looked like. Serpentine, they called it. The trouble is, this fine powder had its drawbacks. When you were transporting it in barrels on a jolty horse and wagon, the ingredients often separated and you had to remix it on the battlefield. Also, because it was so fine, it attracted moisture. It was very hygroscopic. And its fineness had real safety issues because when it was mixed, it formed powder in the air, which is incredibly combustive. It meant there were loads and loads of terrible, terrible accidents. So, at some point, we don't know when, we don't know where, and we don't know who, because everybody kept these things a secret, somebody made a brilliant breakthrough. If you mixed it wet, like a kind of muddy slurry, you end up with this. You could then transport it, and it was much safer to manufacture. So then all you did was pass it through a sieve to regrind it, which is why it came to be called corned powder. And they realised it was much, much more powerful. You don't believe me? Watch this. Listen up. Standard Land Rover gunpowder comparison test. First up, old-fashioned serpentine gunpowder. Thank you, Maestro. Not bad, that works. But the vehicle has not been rendered completely ineffective. Next up, new, improved, granulated, corned gunpowder. Thank you, Maestro. Much better. Thank you. Corned gunpowder is clearly more effective. But gunpowder wasn't just for killing people. It drove the Industrial Revolution too. For blasting, tunnels, canals, and especially in mines. Businessmen got rich. But for miners, setting it off without killing themselves was obviously a bit of a problem.
This is the Camborne School of Mines in Cornwall and has trained generations of Cornish mining engineers because the metals, the tin, copper, zinc, are contained in this granite, incredibly hard stone, and that's where gunpowder comes in, because gunpowder is a brilliant power tool. Today, setting it off is no problem. But until 200 years ago, it was more than your life was worth. Whether you laid a trail of powder up to the charge, or stuffed some in a goose quill and used that as a fuse, there was no way of knowing exactly how fast it would burn. The result? Lots of dead miners. Until in 1831, a Cornish leather merchant called William Bickford invented the safety fuse. Using the available technology of the day, Bickford came up with this. He plats gunpowder inside a double covering, a double helix, one way and one the other. So the gunpowder burns at an even rate inside the fuse. Furthermore, you can calculate the rate of burn. On this fuse, it's 30 seconds for 1 foot. So, if we attach our fuse to our charge, slide it into our freshly drilled hole, that's got it. Right, I've now got a minute. See you later. Even after Bickford invented safety fuse, mining was still incredibly dangerous, levying its toll of miners every year. But it was nothing compared to gunpowder's harvest on Europe's battlefields. By the beginning of the 19th century, the use of gunpowder in war had become almost industrial. June the 18th, 1815. The Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon's French troops are up against British, German and Dutch forces. By now, gunpowder and the science of gunpowder warfare have completely taken over the battlefield. Armies are enormous. Soldiers are well drilled. Massed artillery fires and moves in unison. There's about 100 people in this reenactment society, all firing gunpowder weapons. But at the Battle of Waterloo, there were 250,000 troops, and they fired 3,675,000 rounds. How much gunpowder do you reckon they needed to do that? A ton? 10 tons? Right, well, the infantry used about 336,000 pounds. That's 240 tons. And then, of course, you got the artillery, the heavy mob. They used 478,000 pounds. That's 213.5 tons. And then even the cavalry used gunpowder weapons. So they needed 24,000 pounds. That's 10.5 tons. So altogether, that's over 1 million pounds of powder. Plus you add to that the shot, the lead projectiles they were chucking at each other. That's 1,392 tons on top of that. And that's not counting the reserves. Staggering. Units waiting for battle are supplied, unseen, by huge industries back home, producing cannons, muskets, shot.
all of which take tons and tons of gunpowder. England alone has nearly 100 gunpowder factories. Preparing for battle is time-consuming and meticulous. Soldiers spend hours making and then filling their own cartridges with gunpowder, while officers grapple not just with tactics, but with the logistics of their gunpowder supply trains. It takes nearly 300 wagons just to carry the powder for the British cannons. British infantry normally carry 60 cartridges and are resupplied during the battle. Are now decided by which side can bring the most fire to bear on the enemy at once, repeatedly, over and over again, inexhaustibly. Individual prowess, heroism and chivalry are lost in the smoke. The musket was a very inaccurate weapon. At 80 yards, you stood a chance of hitting a target, a man, usually. 100 yards, dodgy. And at 200 yards, it was said that no man was ever killed at 200 yards by a common soldier's musket by the man who aimed at him. Concentration of fire was the thing. You needed to get as many weapons to bear on the enemy as possible and fire in volleys, devastatingly effective. Ready! There are over 50,000 casualties in one day at Waterloo. They are felled by cannonballs ripping through their bodies and musket balls buried in their flesh. The days of slashes with swords and stabs from lances are largely over. Some 38,000 of the casualties are wounded, and surgeons who deal with them need new skills.
Right, take him away. Next man, Sergeant.
If you are hit by a cannonball at Waterloo, chances are you're dead. If it is a musket ball, you're probably wounded. And now it's up to a surgeon like Mick Crumplin to dig it out.
Now I'm going to see whether the ball has exited the soft part of the thigh or not, because if not, it's going to be retained or broken the bone. We don't know whether the artery is injured. It's on this side of the leg, so it probably isn't. And the next thing to do, having ascertained that the ball is not out, is to try and extract it. The first thing I'm going to do is to make an entry with my finger into the wound to try and feel the ball, because the vast majority of balls, if they can be felt with a finger, a man's index finger, they can be retrieved with a bullet, forceps or whatever.
That's going to hurt, yeah?
So I'm first going to see if I can get my finger into the wound. This is going to hurt rather,
right.
Private.
Yeah, just finger stuff.
All right, I think I can feel the ball. Yep, and the bone seems to be intact. It's a spent ball and it's lying beside the bone. Now the next thing I'm going to have to do, because I haven't got much space, is to make an incision, which is called dilating the wound, over the wound, just to enlarge it so that we can put an instrument in to remove it. All right, soldier, this is going to hurt a bit too. Right, now we're going to put the finger again, some more pain, and we go deeper in. There is the ball. I can feel it more easily now that we've cut the wound open. And I'm going to put the billet forceps in now and see if I can touch it. This is going to be quite painful. A lot of nerves around the muscles here, but it's missed the main bone and the femoral artery because it's lateral, this side of it. And we can just feel the ball now. Now, I've got my finger on it. I've got the instrument round it. And we're now pulling the ball out of the wound, and there we are. That's out.
Okay.
There's your ball, soldier. And we're going to just leave the wound open there, perhaps one adhesive strip and a linen roller bandage around it.
So that was incredibly simple, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it's
in
not,
this case, it's
in
not
this
always
case,
that simple.
all bits of boning.
As we've discussed, if the ball is deformed, then it will track along a bone, it will track in a different tissue plane up into the groin, round the buttock, and you will actually have to often put a soldier into the position in which he received the shot to try and work out the track, because we've got no x-rays, no ultrasound, no CT.
These lead balls were for smashing, weren't they?
These at close quarters are virtually high-velocity rounds. They're looking at 500 or 600 joules of energy. At 20 metres, that goes down to 200, which is enough to smash a young man's thigh bone twice over. So at close range firefight, it is a very big punch. It'll throw you back. Right, take him away. Next man, Sergeant.
A problem remains. Gunpowder weapons, especially muskets, are slow to fire and give off lots of smoke, which means you give away your position and you give time for your target to escape.
The secret of wildfowling is surprise. If you've got a great big musket blazing away with loads of smoke and fire, you don't really stand much of a sporting chance. They're all going to see you. The solution was found by a shy, retiring Scottish minister by the name of Forsyth, who liked to hunt ducks.
The Reverend is keen, but keeps missing his prey. So he figures that the smoke and delay from the priming powder in his flintlock is giving the ducks time to get away. So he invents the percussion lock, where the priming powder is enclosed. This develops into the percussion cap, a small metal cap which fires directly into the musket with no flash. And presto! It is 1805, and problem solved, much to the dismay of ducks and foot soldiers everywhere. By now, gunmaking is a well-established art, and fine firing pieces command top prices from gunsmiths across Europe.
I'm here at this lovely stately home to meet a mate of mine who's got quite a lot of handguns in the boot of his car.
It's always good to see my hard-working thespian chum, Michael Gambon.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Michael. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good, thanks for coming. So, what have you got in the boot?
Ah. Walk this way.
Nice Bentley.
There we are.
Aha.
Now, how'd you like that?
Tapex.
Sir Michael's not just Britain's foremost actor, he's also one of Britain's foremost gun experts. Handguns had developed from a necessity, a way to protect yourself from knives and swords, into a fashion accessory. Guns were for showing off, as they moved from the battlefield to the drawing rooms of high society. My pal Michael has a most unusual collection.
4 barrels, tap action, lots of gold.
Just for show.
Yeah, just flash.
Just like,
Yeah.
look at that.
2 barrels on top, 2 barrels on bottom. And that's called a tap action pistol. Double layered pan, so as you revolve that tap, the pan turns over and reveals more prime.
So you got 4 goes.
4 goes.
And also, when you discharge all 4 barrels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely.
That's lovely, that, look.
You
then can smack someone right across the top of the head with that.
And they did do that, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, constantly.
With a Harold Wilson. It looks like Harold Wilson.
Yeah.
Don't look like it, man. Some do. Hello.
Okay. That would seriously hurt, wouldn't it?
Yeah. This is walnut, as it always is walnut. That should be there. There's one missing.
You lost it?
But that doesn't matter.
No, okay.
And now what? Something long.
Yeah.
This is Irish. An Irish
that's very lovely.
little short carbine with a bayonet underneath. You pull the trigger. Ooh.
Oh, ouch.
Twist barrels. Box lock action.
Beautiful. What's this figuring on the steel?
Well, it's iron and steel, which is beaten, twisted round, and when it's finally done up and browning solution or acids put on it, the iron and steel show different colours. There, Mark. Belonged to the Duke of York.
The Grand Old, as in the Grand Old
Yeah.
Duke of York.
He died in 1827, and that was sold at Christie's.
What would he have had it for? Would it
Well,
be
it's
for
just a
sport
little
or
sporting rifled carbine. And if these barrels come off, and a single one goes on.
in case you get bored with the 2?
Yeah, in case you want. So I could take them off now, but they're quite fiddly to take off.
And this has got a captive.
Captive ram, in case you lose it.
Because he was a bit forgetful, was he,
But
Duke of York?
he shook a bit.
Did he?
And I think his hand shook, so he didn't want to lose his ramrod.
How did he
I
get
don't
it
know
back
how
in?
he did it. He was a funny old. Anyway,
That's really.
Grand Old Duke of York. This is in gold as the maker's name, Stoudemire,
Stoudemire.
who was German but lived in London.
Didn't you say that you got a companion piece to this?
Well, I've got a single barrel that goes
But
on
also,
to that.
didn't you say you had the pistols that went with it?
Yes, I have. Mark, what do you think of that? Isn't that beautiful? Dur's egg, very rare, 3-barrel pocket pistol.
It's a fake.
It's a what?
Look, it's a three
A
things.
fake?
3 parts of a socket set to a knife handle.
How dare you talk about that pistol like that, blackguard?
And you, sir, are an imposter or a
And you,
charlatan.
sir, are a pig.
And you are a swine also.
A liar and a pig. I challenge you to a duel.
Accept.
Go then. You liar, scoundrel, pig.
You nit.
You terrible guthead.
You embroiderer.
Enough!
Soon, it all changes. In 1856, an Italian chemist chances on an amazing discovery. Nitroglycerine is born, a remarkable explosive, much more powerful than gunpowder, will now take over the world. Watch this. We're about to blow up just 24 kilos of modern high explosive.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, just 2 modern-day artillery shells did that. Last year, over 500,000 new artillery shells, that size alone, were added to the millions of kilos of high explosives that already exist around the world. That's a lot of bangs, isn't it? Bye-bye.
Cantona or Bergkamp, Zola or Henry. Everyone's a winner in Helen Chamberlain's countdown of the Premiership's greatest foreign players next tonight over on Sky 1. Great Nerves of Steel next year on Sky 3 though, catching Crims up close.